Thank you, Mayor. This is why I raised this. I agree with Alderman Grotti and Kruger and Langdon that the funding that we have in here is quite adequate, and that if 10 years from now we haven't even used those funds, then we did fail, definitely. Alderman Taylor also makes a good point. We're not always going to be here in the future, and future councils make different decisions. And the reason I raised this is because I had a conversation with the mayor, who implied to me, and you can correct me if I'm not correct, but that we might, if this becomes too successful, we might have to go out and place this on the levy, which I said no. We had a set amount that we budgeted for this program, and that's that. And when those funds are gone, they're done. And all I'm looking at is, okay, I did make a motion, and the mayor worked with me on that in the council to take $175,000 and apply it to our debt, because I think that does a lot more than you might realize. And so that's why I'm taking this position today, that if we at least maybe look at a lien or something like that, here's a possibility that if it does become extremely successful, we at least have some dollars to fall back on in past 5 years. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, we do have a motion on the floor to approve the program. And let's see if this is going to work or not this time. Otherwise, we're going to do a lot of voice votes tonight.
No, voice vote.
No? Okay. That's what I was wondering too. We can reboot it if you want to once, but we can take a vote on this.
Sure.
And then we can reboot it while we're discussing the next topics.
Okay, so we're going to, the motion is. Okay. This time we'll start with Alderman Tom Grotti. So the motion is to approve the. Okay. Ted Grotti. Aye. Alderman Rapella. Aye. Alderman Nichols. Aye. Alderman Taylor.
We're voting right now. And your vote is?
Aye.
Okay.
Alderman Sevenik.
Aye.
Alderman Langdon.
Aye.
Alderman Kruger.
Aye.
Motion carries on roll call 8-0.
Do we need to take a recess, or can we just turn it off while we're discussing the next topic? I don't know.
I can try, I will see what it tells me.
Okay, so the next item is the recommendation to award the street construction for Province Link, Midway Crossing, and Province Terrace. Is there a motion? Alderman Kruger. Oops, maybe I can. There we go.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make the motion to approve the recommendation to award contract unit number 2019-1, the new street construction, Province Terrace, Jenny Street, Province Link, and Midway Crossing, various locations, Summers Construction Incorporated, in the amount of $697,062.40.
Second.
There's a motion and a second by Alderman Langdon. Is it coming back up, or do we want to?
Yes, so now we are at, next item. No.
Yeah, it always flashes like that. Or do you want to just do a?
Well, this one it says, I'm gonna, okay.
It says quorum not okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's because we didn't have enough votes on the last one.
okay, so
Okay.
now we are at the Jenny,
Yes.
okay.
Is it gonna- And it was by Alderman Kruger and Alderman Langdon. See what happens. No? Okay, well, we'll just keep doing voice votes then. Well, we're just gonna do voice votes if it doesn't work.
This is a different program. Okay, Alderman Ted Grady.
Aye.
Alderman Repella.
Aye.
Alderman Nichols. Alderman Taylor. Alderman Sevenick. Alderman Langdon. Alderman Kruger. Alderman Tom Grady. Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
So the next item is the street construction projects for Broad, Melissa, Grove, Lawndale, Greenwood, Frederick, and the library parking lot. Do we have a motion? Alderman Kruger.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make the motion to approve for the recommendation to award contract unit number 2019-3 for a street reconstruction various locations on Broad Street, Melissa Street, Grove Street, Lindale Drive, and Court, Greenwood Drive, Frederick Street, and the library parking lot, Northeast Asphalt Incorporated, in the amount of $393,347.33.
There's a motion and a second by Alderman Langdon. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Alderman Repella. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Taylor. Alderman Sevenick. Alderman Langdon. Alderman Kruger. Alderman Tom Grady. Alderman Ted Grady. Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Item 5 is the rear yard drainage program. Do we have a motion? Alderman Kruger.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make the motion to approve the rear yard drainage program.
There's a motion and a second, I believe, by Ted Grady. Discussion. Alderman Nichols.
Thank you, Mayor. After reviewing the program one more time since the last meeting, I'm conflicted that we get to decide, or that Public Works would decide when $100 is reimbursed and when $100 is not. And so I'd like to offer an amendment because I believe a property owner has the right to withdraw their application for any reason that they see fit. We don't know what happens in circumstances from the time of their application to the time that they may need to withdraw their application. So I would like to offer the amendment that in the section labeled fee on the application itself, in the third line, to remove the part that says the $100 fee will be forfeited.
Is there a second? I do not see a second. Alderman Sevenick?
I think she still has the floor. Okay. Well, I was gonna say, pretty much, that's what we're voting on tonight, you know, is pretty much that fee. We do have a program, it's a very good program, and, you know, we do all this work, staff spends a lot of time, and then they back out, because they don't wanna pay for it. And we're already putting in our own engineering for it. We're helping with, as far as finding contractors and things like that, so I think that $100 part was pretty important. That's why we're voting tonight, so I think this is a unique program that I don't know if there's other communities around that even have this, that we give this. And right now, trust me, this is the time you want this program. With all the flooding that's going on, right now, my backyard is an ice rink, but once it thaws, I am gonna have a new pond, so, and I
You
know.
already have a pond back there.
Well, I do.
You can get bigger goldfish.
I said a
then.
new pond. So, all right, thank you.
Alderman Kruger?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to mention that over the weekend, I actually had a phone call from a resident within the city, not my district and all that, and he called specifically about this program because of what just happened. And when I explained to him about the $100 deposit, he had no issue with that whatsoever. He said it's well worth it, and he was gonna give Josh and contact Josh today to be able to get put onto the program and all that, and I take it by the nods, he did actually contact you, correct?
I did get a couple of requests in the last day or two.
Yeah, so the response that I got, at least from the one individual, did not have a concern with the $100 deposit at all. He thought it was well intended, and he understands why we were doing the deposit, so, thank you.
I take it that the motion died for lack of a second because I didn't hear any second, but Alderman Nichols, did you have more discussion?
Yes, I was confused. That's why I was waiting my turn.
You didn't call it, but you'd have to call it.
Yeah, normally I would have, but go ahead, Alderman Nichols, if you have more to discuss.
Well, I believe that there are other changes to the program that we're voting on, not just the financial piece of it, just mostly how the program is structured and who will be doing the legwork on behalf of the neighbors at this point. That's all part of the requested change in the program, correct?
The biggest changes were the $100 fee up front, as well as the timeline of the events. So now we actually have a timeline where you have to submit it by July 1st to get it on the construction season for the following year, and that gives us time to engineer, to budget appropriately to do that type of work. Given the fact that we do our budget in November, we have to give ourselves time to do the engineering before we budget. It also, instead of doing one-off projects the way we currently do, this update will have us do multiple projects at once, so hopefully we'll get more competitive bidding and more bidders. We've had struggles with bidders even coming out to look for projects in the past. So those were the main changes. We do also want to have the residents contact their neighbors to get signatures on their project, because this project will be owned by all the neighboring properties that are benefited by this program. They need to have buy-in from their neighbors. So it should be something that we should be encouraging neighbors to work together and talk to each other about this project, rather than just having the city come in and say, your neighbor told us that they wanted to do this program, now we're here to come, get your signature. That doesn't build strong communities. That's, something that we want to try and get the neighbors to work together to say, hey, we want this problem solved. Let's go to the Public Works Department, have all of our signatures up there, up front. Hey, we're good. So, and one thing that we are gonna work with, all of the applicants on is, we are going to do a preliminary assessment, just, kind of drive by, look, what properties could be affected, and make sure that they can get signatures from all the properties that we believe that that are affected during the application process before we even take that $100 fee. That way we're not stuck later on where one neighbor doesn't want to sign off on it, and therefore the project dies and then the $100 fee is lost. So that's what we're trying to avoid. So we are going to promote that neighbors get involved with the applications early on. The neighbors start talking to each other, to really try and drive that neighborhood ownership of this, issue and resolution.
And I'm willing to go with all of that. I even support the $100 application fee in the beginning. My issue is that going forward, then Public Works decides when that fee is forfeited or reimbursed or applied towards the payment of the project. It says here, if the property owner does not move forward with the project at any stage, the $100 fee will be forfeited. If the project is deemed not to have a viable solution, if neighboring properties do not agree to the project, or if the project does not receive a construction bid, the $100 fee will be reimbursed. And so I think the $100 fee should be reimbursed even if the property owner backs out for some reason.
And the reason we did throw those 3 exceptions in there is because we do foresee that potentially being an issue later on. Is will be some drainage issues where we do not find a good engineering solution. There's just areas where we know that there's not much we can do. A second thing is, say we go out, we preliminary assess that there's 5 residents that need to be affected by this. say after we do our full engineering study, say it's 7 or 8 residents. Well, we don't know what those other 2 or 3 residents were gonna say up front, so therefore, that's one of the cases where we would allow a reimbursement of that $100 because additional properties were included that weren't included with that initial application. And then finally, we can't control if contractors actually bid on our projects. So if we don't get a bid, we can't expect them to lose that $100. So those are the 3 scenarios where we would give back money. Otherwise, it would be to forfeit it.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, are you gonna try again? No, we're gonna try the program to see if it will work. So this is the entire program. There was a motion to approve the program as,
No, it didn't work.
that was an amendment. This is the entire program as originally in the project, in the packet. So this is with no changes. And it didn't work? Okay. So there's a motion by, I forget who? By Alderman,
I have Alderman Kruger and Alderman Ted Grady
Okay.
to approve the rear yard.
to approve the program as presented in the packet. So we'll have a roll call vote then, please.
Alderman Nichols? Alderman Taylor? Yes. Alderman Sevenick? Aye. Alderman Langdon? Aye. Alderman Kruger? Aye. Alderman Tom Grady? Aye. Alderman Ted Grady?
Aye.
Alderman Repella?
Aye.
Motion carried on roll call 7-1.
We do have a guest this evening for item K2, the resolution. And if there's no objections, I didn't realize that we'd be going on quite as long as we did. I'd like to move that item up, Resolution 8-9 regarding TID 14. Do we have any objections to moving that one up? No? Alderman Sevenick?
Are you talking about R 8-19?
Yes.
Yes. I think you said 9, so, but
Oh,
anyways.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So, Peter Youngbacher is here this evening, and he'd like to share with us a little bit where he's at on the project. And he has a very heavy board showing some of the materials that we carried down earlier. You get a workout with that one with the stone on it. That one's easy. You just lean that one up against the.
Again, my name is Peter Youngbacher. I appeared here in the recent past to talk about the tax incremental district request. We're here again tonight to review it and hopefully vote on it. Wanted to provide some updates on the world since we were here last. I believe Shopko stores during the last meeting was a topic of some conversation because they had just announced the filing of a Chapter 11 petition for reorganization under the Federal Bankruptcy Code. That process has continued until an announcement today, which appeared, and I think most of you are probably aware of it, but they announced this afternoon or this morning that their attempts to reorganize have not been successful. I know that there was a request for parties to make bids for the remaining stores that were to be received over the weekend. As a creditor of the bankrupt state, I get almost daily mailings from them. I have a banker's box at the moment that has documentation, and I was reviewing the process by which they were trying to go through the sale, and that unfortunately didn't work. So I think it's sad for all of us to recognize that the end of Shopko is upon us, and that will create more stores being available, another 120 stores at last count. So that being said, we're continuing to move ahead with our project. I believe since we were here last time as well, we've been able to announce that Starbucks will be able to join us at the location, and green. Okay. I have to hit over there, don't I? Let me try that again. So this is the this is the building that will be built out in front, and there'll be a slide. If you could advance it one more, please. Here is the building itself. Starbucks will be on the corner. And then the center itself that's currently in existence will be located in the rear. Starbucks will have a traditional drive-through. We have 2 tenant spaces available for lease. We're negotiating with some tenants currently. If you could back it up one, please. Thank you. The front of the building, I believe, has a very interesting architectural image to it, as well as the rear of the building. And it'll tie into the center and the back. So if you could advance one more. There we go. This is an image of the center as proposed, and on the board that's being circulated, you can see some of the color images that we have on this board. The architect at Keller Construction, who will serve as the general contractor for the project, has been helpful with us identifying products and colors. And if you could advance the slide one more, please. You can see the application of these products. This particular material here is reflected on this image. The stone here is the stone reflected down here, and there's very little ethos in the project. I know that Sam has explained the city's attitude about that, but there's a little banding up here and a little banding over here. The rest of it is stone or the material that's on the color board. So could you advance it one more, please? Another image of the corner. We have sign panel areas. One more, please. Experience Fitness, our anchor tenant, has a screen being built over its existing canopy with a very large sign board to use for identifying its name. And then I think there's one more. Another image looking to the southwest of the project. So that hasn't really changed since our last conversation. Starbucks is ready to move ahead. We've been able to complete the bidding process, and if we have a successful approval by the council tonight, I think we can be underway early this spring. Our goal would be to complete all of the facade work by fall, also to have turnover occur for Starbucks by late August or early September, and to have a significantly improved visual image appearing at the corner, this gateway into Menasha from the north.
Do you have questions for Peter? It looks like Mark does this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question for Director John Jacobs, our finance person. And when I became alderman, of course, we had TIFs back then, and that was one of the first things that I wanted to learn. And so I went through 2 finance persons before John and went through them thoroughly so I would understand how a TIF works. So, John, could you please tell me how what a TIF is for and how it works?
The manner that the TIF works is that it will go ahead and lock in a valuation in a base district boundary area. And then as time goes on, you have got additional valuation that's added typically by developers. It could be a public-private partnership arrangement for it, so that all the other taxing jurisdictions, the school district, the county, the technical college, give up the right for additional valuation and property taxes once the base value has been set, once you have the boundary area. Future taxes that are incurred on additional property valuation will come all to the city. However, the city will be the one that bears the burden of the risk on any future debt or a pay-go relationship that, or incentives that are paid to a developer, which is part of a TIF project plan that you will be reviewing and possibly approving tonight, which are outlined in your project plan that you have in front of you tonight for consideration. So what happens is that as time goes on, those debt obligations, if the city would need to borrow for, or if it's a pay-go, or as additional tax dollars are generated, property tax dollars generated from additional valuation increases, those dollars we use to be paying towards developer incentives. So in a nutshell, what it is that the city bears the entire risk, and the school district, the county, the technical college have given up their rights until all of the obligations have been paid off, 100% paid in full, and then the TIF could be closed again so that the additional valuation that's created will be shared by the city and the other taxing jurisdictions over time, or once the TIF has been closed. So that's kind of like what we did 2 weeks ago when we closed out TIF number 5. All the debt obligations would be paid off 100% in full. We had enough dollars in the fund balance to pay that off, and now the valuation will be shared to all the taxing jurisdictions. So it's a tool for increasing property value. The additional valuation, in theory, what should happen is that the additional valuation created would then go back to add to the tax base and could possibly stabilize or lower the property tax rate of the city and possibly of all the other taxing jurisdictions by a certain amount, depending on how much new valuation that's been created.
So what I learned, and everybody that I talked to about what a TIF does and how it works and what it's for, everybody told me that a TIF is for development. That's what it's created for. I didn't hear anything different. I voted for a TIF when we were talking about the tower in the parking lot. That was creating development. And I haven't heard any other that a TIF works any other way other for development. So, thank you.
Alderman Sevenick.
Thank you, Mayor. Just maybe to help Alderman Langdon and with his questions, John gets too technical sometimes.
I try to limit him to 1 page, but we'll have to start talking about number of words too.
Originally, TIFs were designed for 2 purposes. Number 1 was to take care of blight, and number 2 to create jobs. And I look at this particular project, and over time, the legislature continued to change it to the point where now you can even use it as we have to even do housing stock. Before it was only in a depressed paper industry area or something like that. And so, and in some ways it's gotten better, in other ways it's like gotten out of control. But anyways, I keep thinking of a phone call I got a few years back from Mr. Van Zeelen, who owns the Fox gas station over there. And he says, Alderman Sevenick, you guys better get on the ball in cleaning up that site over there. He says you have so much opportunity, and he says it wouldn't take much. But the area is depressed and it needs some cleaning up. And I also told him, be careful what you wish for. You might get a quick trip, and that's what ended up happening. But I look at this, and I kind of see it as being, doing the things that originally the TIFs were designed for. I do consider this becoming a little blighted. It needs to be cleaned up. And also, a new business is being developed there, where they're going to build a brand-new building, which is, what is the value basically on that particular building itself?
The new value?
Yeah.
Well, I think for purposes of the model, it's about $1.8 million.
Ain't gonna help them all,
$1.5
Well,
million?
right now
$1.5
it's empty,
because
so
they're
it's.
all drive-throughs. I know them there every week.
So anyways, what then this will do is that it will increase traffic, and it'll increase, we have a footprint, a building that will go on the tax rolls that's not there now. And also too, we have an anchor that's there that we could potentially lose to this community because of losing Shopko. That is the Experience Fitness, which is doing very well there. And there are other openings in that area that need to be, and this, I've seen his developments in Fond du Lac and all the added businesses that have come to that area. But here's the other thing that John needs to explain to us. This TIF is also different because it's similar to the one in the downtown. It's a PAYGO program. We took a lot of risk in the past with past TIFs. This is a PAYGO TIF, and John, you want to explain a little the difference between the PAYGO style of, you want to pass it on, and then the type of TIF now, because it really is put on the developer more than it is on the city.
Yeah, my name's Jonathan Schatz from Ellers, and so the way this is structured is as a pay-go, pay-as-you-go. So basically, the city is removing itself from all of the risk associated with project costs here to the developer by only paying as increment is generated, or new value is generated. So if there's no new value generated, the increment does not get generated, and the city is not responsible for paying out the full amount. And all of this will be detailed and formalized in a development agreement. But for now, the important thing is, as opposed to taking out debt up front and paying it back over the life of the TID, we're saying we're committing, the city is committing to a certain amount, and only if the development goals are met will that amount be paid out.
Okay, thank you for that. And Mayor, that's what we did with the downtown project too, and actually the project came in higher. And very much benefited the city, and so I'll let the other council members speak.
So all the TIFs and all the development agreements since I've been mayor have been PAYGO TIFs, just to limit that risk on the city and place that risk on the developer instead. Alderman Kruger?
No, thank you, Mayor. I've talked with Sam numerous times on this project, and he knows my concerns well, and I might voice them here in a little bit. But I just had first, John, according to this, the anticipated increase in value from this project is going to be $4,556,000. Is that correct? That's what's anticipated? Okay. Now, the value, is that still based on the percentage of occupancy? So if the building doesn't meet a certain percentage of occupancy, is that gonna affect the overall value of this project?
Yes, certainly if the occupancy is not, we anticipate that the occupancy will generate new income, which will generate the value. So if it doesn't pan out the way we anticipate, then the value won't either. But then again, that's why we're doing the pay-go structure.
And then John, what type of additional revenue will it create with that $4,556,000?
And that's on page 20 of the project plan. So there's a TID worksheet there, and you can see there's a green column. That's your annual anticipated increment being generated off that. So you can see the 4.5 million in value added will generate 3.6.
Right, no, I'm talking actual taxes that could be received by the city in the end, additional.
Yes, that's the 3.6 million.
That's 3.6
Yeah,
million,
yeah.
okay. All right, okay. And John, what
Yep.
percentage of the overall, or of the city's value can be tied up within a TIF?
That is found on page 10. You've got a column there on the right-hand, there's two columns of numbers. As you know, that state law has a 12% limit of equalized valuation, and based on our 2018, now 2019 valuation by the state won't be set until August. So this percentage will change, but as of the 2018 equalized valuation, the city's value was roughly about 1.2 billion, and of that 12% would be 141 million. And once you subtract off TIF 5, which we just closed, and add this new base valuation, and we're at 124. So we are still 124 million with locking in this boundary for TIF 14 and closing out TIF 5. We're still well below the 141 million. So there is the potential right now to create, additional TIFs going forward, and that the difference will increase once that 2019 equalized valuation comes out in August. So our 141 would likely go upward. I don't know how much at this point, but the last several years, the equalized valuation has been increasing.
Okay. And then Sam, do you anticipate this, is there enough leftover meat for the Bonta site, the Gilbert site, the Bryn site, and all the other areas that we are probably gonna end up incorporating into some sort of TIF to get development there?
John and I have had those conversations, and we do feel that, especially with those scopes of projects and where they're at, that we certainly do have that. And we can certainly be very strategic and watch that on an annual basis. Once that 12% maximum is based on an annual year as well. For example, Little Chute, I know just created multiple TIFs in 1 year, and they're drastically over that 12%. However, they were all created within that same calendar year. So again, it is going to be strategic how we continue to look at that, but we do have additional TIFs coming up on that closure schedule. So I think we feel confident that we can still meet the goals elsewhere in the city.
Thank you. I'd have a question for you actually now. With your Fond du Lac development and Oshkosh development, were the TIFs similar for those projects as what you're asking for here?
No, they were not. There were no TIFs involved in either of those two properties.
Well, they weren't, okay.
No.
Can I ask why?
Yes. In Fond du Lac, we were fortunate enough to have Festival Foods as an anchor. And as a consequence, it was also done in 2007. So we're talking 12 plus years ago. The economy was much different. It was particularly different as it relates to retailers and the retail environment. And I think those three factors probably resulted in interest rates were different as well. They were lower than they are today. In Oshkosh, we had, that project began also about that time, and we had a former Menards center that we acquired in the early 2000s, and we were able to get a lineup of retailers that included, from a developer's standpoint, included the wish list of who you'd like to have in your center. Ross which is a public company, has a Standard & Poor's rating of, I think it's A-minus. Best Buy, a category leader in its sector. It's the only real viable physical electronics retailer left, but also one that's doing quite well financially. Ulta, which is another public company, another leader in its class. Five Below, another public company. And these are the best of the cream of the crop. They have almost zero long-term debt in their balance sheets. They have more than 1,000 stores in their footprint. And we were facing Interstate 41. We were sandwiched in between Target and Hobby Lobby, TJ Maxx, sort of a continuation of a who's who of retailers. The reality is you don't have that here. You have, as the council president was indicating, an area that's lighted. You also have now a challenge with your shadow anchor Shopko going dark. And you have a moment here, I think I discussed this last time, in the cycle of real estate assets, you have moments in which you really have to either step up and make a decision about reinvesting in the asset, or you walk away from the asset, and the asset begins to languish, and the value that you think you have today will decrease. So instead of supporting its value, you're going to have an erosion of assessed valuation, which is not going to help the city. I am willing to, as a neighbor, I live in Oshkosh, I am willing and have in the past, during the previous cycle, I had a grocery store. The grocery store went dark on me. I had to figure out how to fill 55,000 square feet of space, very deep space. We ended up, fortunately, being able to secure Experience Fitness, but I also had to, during that financing that I had in place at the time, I had to dig deep into my pocket and come up with $1,350,000 to fit that space without the benefit of being able to put a lien on the property because it was prohibited by my existing loan during a very difficult economic time. So I was home, lifting sofa cushions up, looking for quarters in the sofa to try and do that. It was a very difficult and painful decision to make. I also did it at a time when I had no recourse on the loan. What I mean by no recourse is I had no personal liability. I could have simply said, I'm sorry, lender, this is not working. I'm sorry, City of Menasha, this is not working. Here are the keys to the property. I'll move on to something else. So I didn't do that at that point, and instead I doubled down, I invested more money, and we have a at the moment, successful Experience Fitness. However, nothing is constant. This is a very dynamic world, and people are going to poach that store if we don't do something to this shopping center. They're going to go someplace else, and it probably won't be in the city of Menasha. It'll probably be in the town of Harrison, or the town of, or the city of Appleton, or the town of Buchanan. So you don't want that to happen, and the way you stop it from happening is you have developers like me who are willing to take the risk, step up and say, I need some help, but the majority of this risk is mine. The PAYGO TIF has been discussed. If we don't produce the value, if the increment isn't there, the risk is mine. So fortunately, the state of Wisconsin has acted as a good partner and have done a lot of very good things with 441 and 47. That's been, I think, a saving grace for this whole equation. And it certainly had an impact and influenced part of my decision here. But those were different times. We went through this conversation last time. The retail environment today is extremely challenging. And your competition, I think John just mentioned, Little Chute was, or Sam, I think he said Little Chute aggressively was going out using TIFs last year. So is everyone else in your competitive world here. And they're doing it because they need to be able to offer that financing increment to make projects close the gap and work. And I need this to close the gap and make it work. And the other benefit you're going to get is I'm reaching on things architecturally because of the TIF that are going to give us all a better gateway into the community than we have now or possible through self-funding. Frankly, without this, as a developer, we look at where you go and get things done with, somewhat the path of least resistance. And having me live in Oshkosh gives you an advantage because it's close, but we do have opportunities to do things in other markets. And this is not a slam dunk by any stretch of the imagination. It's going to be a very difficult, challenging project to work on. I think it can work, and I'm willing to spend my energy and my resources to do it, but it's not going to be easy, and I need this to help get it done.
Okay, I guess have hesitations about this. I have concerns. I mean, I'm not fully on board with it. I mean, I don't know if it's because this is more of a TIF or a facade restoration more than anything else, or what it is, but I thank you for your time, though.
Thank you.
Alderman Grady?
No, thank
You're
you.
up.
Thank you, thank you. Peter, thank you. Very, very nice presentation. I don't know if you have an aerial shot of that whole situation, but that's fine if you don't, because I have just 3 points. One is the PAYGO TIF. Great way for the city, nice way to finance it, quite good to start. You got a Starbucks coming in there, that's a home run. And the aerial shot would be that location, location, location. And it's an ideal location. So I'm on board with this one. Thank you.
Here it goes. Here's someone else. Alderman Rapella?
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Peter, again, I echo what Alderman Grady said. He did a nice job. I think you're a good man who wants to help the city. Do you have any ideas about the Shopko et al. Situation? Or I know that's not something that you are responsible for, but that's going to be an empty spot on that end of the development.
I can tell you what is public record, and I can tell you a little bit in terms of my conversations with the current owner. Public record is I don't own the Shopko store. Right. It's owned not by Shopko or by, there's one entity that owns 80 Shopko stores. It's a REIT. It's owned by an individual who lives in Madison. He owns 3 other Shopkos. We have been in conversation with the council representing the owner. We have probably the best opportunity to work out something that would allow us to see if we can get some other users into that are what we call mid-size box users, the 20 to 30,000 square foot size users. It takes a while for an owner of a building that up until May, I think when they close, was getting rent of X dollars a month, and as a consequence, thinking he had a value of Y dollars, to come to terms with what the value of this property is today. And the initial conversations that we have are indicative of the fact that he hasn't probably made that price readjustment yet. The issue about reinvestment spills over to that property as well, because if we choose to take a different path here and we don't provide either myself or someone else to come in a environment in which they're willing to reinvest in that building, the assessed valuation that you see on that building today is going to plummet. And the city will, when you think about the size of the building and the millions of dollars of current assessed valuation and what that owner will come back with, and you compare it to the number of households in the city, it's going to have an impact. Right. So the way you stop that is by not walking away from the problem, but by addressing it. And I'm not saying I'm going to be the answer to it. I'm in conversations with the owner about potentially getting an option and seeing if we can redevelop that space, but I can't do it based on the current value that they're asking for, and there'll be some adjustment over time, and I believe we'll get there, but it's not today.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate you coming back. When you were here last time, you were telling us how these businesses that you go after are insulated against the internet. And could you kind of touch on that, what we have in the mall there now? And
Well, yes.
how we're insulated from the internet?
That's a good question, Alderman Taylor. The prime example of that is the gym. You can't virtual reality out the process of going to a gym. You might be able to, go on Pendleton and do the bike thing, but it's really not the same. So they're a good example of that. The other internet, less poachable or non-poachable types of tenants would be the hair salon, the men's beauty salon, a chiropractic clinic or a dental office, or the kinds of things, a nail salon, or those kinds of things where you need to have face-to-face contact. The Starbucks is a phenomenon. I don't drink coffee, so I don't understand. I understand the economics, but I don't understand the economics. Maybe I'm just too cheap, but
Me too.
I don't even understand buying bottled water, but I do it out of necessity sometimes. But they do provide a product and a service that in the industry as a landlord is the A-team. I mean, it's the best type of tenant you could ask for in terms of credit quality, sustainability in terms of a business plan that works, and what they do in terms of others who like to locate nearby or next to them. So we are dealing with a couple of tenants like that now for the front and the back. It gives an imprimatur of saying this is a location worth taking another look at. And again, what we're trying to do is say, yeah, it is, and here's what it physically looks like, as opposed to the current condition that is tired and it needs to be addressed. And it's not going to get any better with what is now Shopko department stores creating a big dark spot of 88,000 square feet adjacent to us. So we're looking for those kinds of tenants. We think we can locate them. We're using Pfefferly to assist us in leasing. We're using Keller Contracting to build the building. Local folks who have people who live in the city or work in the market. And my hope is that we'll find them. But I've been doing this for 40 years, and I know that it's very difficult to lease space that doesn't look nice. It's just, it's not going to work. And you're not going to get the kind of business that is sustainable and has the economics that will work as well. So you have to continue to buff up the apple and try and make sure you can sell it.
Same with our downtown. We've gone through a facelift the last 30 years, and it's starting to get right where we want it. So it does take time, and until you have that quality, you get quality renters for you. Is the small restaurant going to stay at China Star?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
And,
the north wing is actually fully occupied. We have some vacancies that will be in the pocket in the corner between that and the Experience Fitness, which are nice-sized stores. They're 1,200, 1,500 square foot stores, and I think those will be the first to be leased.
And when is the timetable on tearing down the used to be a Perkins restaurant and building the Starbucks?
The Garden View.
If we can get everything approved, and I think on our way we have one more joint review board meeting after this. Our expectation would be that we would have the demolition of the former Garden View or Perkins building occur in about 30 days, and that construction can start on the other building at about the same time because it's actually not in the same footprint. And then we can do the same thing with some of the work on the back. We have state-approved plans for the front. I believe we're on the verge of getting them for the back. And as we all know, it's been a brutal winter, and we're hoping for the frost to come out of the ground, and then we can start doing the underground utilities and other such things. One other thing that I discussed with Sam and the mayor, the current plan has an underwater storage, stormwater retention system for the Starbucks building, and we're going to propose actually to eliminate that and create a permanent water feature on the entrance to the center off to the left as you come in, and make that the design element as opposed to the cost of burying it and not seeing it. So I know your planning staff has made it abundantly clear to us on design criteria and landscaping, and we're adding more trees and more islands and softening the image of the front of the building as much as we can to, I think, make this something that'll look good for the next 20 years. But our timetable is about 30 days or so from probably the last of the public meetings that we have to run through, which might be another 10 days if we're successful in getting approval tonight.
And when would you expect Starbucks to open?
We would hope to turn over Starbucks in August, and they would probably open within about 45 to 50 days after that. They would have to do some additional interior build-out. So our turnover to them is targeted, if our schedule continues, the second half of August.
Okay. And it seems like there's a trend that people just we get cooped up in this winter for a long time, and to have outside dining. Would Starbucks have that?
Yes. Yeah, there'll be outside dining and umbrellas. It adds a little bit of color to the neighborhood, and I think that's something that will help us all. It's going to add a little panache to the corner with outdoor dining.
And if that other restaurant in the mall, strip mall, the China restaurant, wanted to have some sort of outside dining or something, would that be possible?
I believe it is. I'd have to ask Sam about the ordinance for outdoor dining. I know Oshkosh has recently changed their opinion about that and are now encouraging it because it creates a lot of interaction among pedestrians and customers. So if possible and they wanted to do that, we'd certainly allow it. And there's space for it. There is a fairly large open area
Yes.
that would allow that to happen.
I was just wondering if your development would allow that. I know our city.
It would.
Okay.
Yes, it would.
All right, thank you. And I think somebody else touched on it, but I didn't quite hear it. When you were here last, you were talking about some other outbuildings that may be built with this. Are you still looking at that? That there was other stores that you might build between Starbucks and the mall?
That's always a possibility. That hasn't advanced anymore because we're trying to get the building blocks in place, but there might be an opportunity to do that across the easement area or the drive entrance beyond that pond. But I can't say with any degree of specificity.
But if something was to come forward, you'd still be open to that?
I would be, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's quite a sea of blacktop from Starbucks.
And it will be toned down as a result of the additional islands and landscaping that we're planning on putting in.
And Sam, I saw that the fitness center was going to have this huge sign. They do understand we have signage regulations in that, so they don't.
Yeah, and that's, geez Louise, you know me, I have to get the last word in. But yeah, so the plan itself, while we have discussed it, has not been scrutinized per our plans. So obviously, any new signage, we'll still have to get a sign permit, follow all of our regulations. The entire facade, because it is touching more than 15% of that facade, more like 100%, does require plan commission approval. So again, I just wanted to touch on the timeline very briefly. So depending on the action tonight at the Common Council, that would go to the JRB meeting on April 2nd. they would have final yes or no with this TIF creation. Should the common council wish to recommend approval of this tonight. From there, April 2nd, I believe we're still trying to meet for the plan commission to have that entire facade work completed. And as mentioned a couple times, by creating this, we still would have to get an actual development agreement pulled together with Peter. And depending again on the action tonight, we would very much so be pulling all of that details together in an actual document that the common council would approve, I would assume probably as early as April 1st at that council meeting. So this will not be the last time you guys see it. But again, it's all kind of dependent on where we go tonight.
Okay. If we could turn to page 14. And what we see there for the people at home is the proposed TIF 14 boundary. And on the left-hand corner of that map, you have your legend there. And we have TIF 14 boundary in red. And then the blue lines are across the highway to the east. And it looks like it's Drum Corps Drive and University Drive are highlighted in blue. Could you explain that?
Certainly. So as part of this this overall TIF, it is a pay-go TIF where a portion of those funds are put back into the developer. And what you always look for anytime you create a TIF is that overall blight. And you can put funds into other projects such as infrastructure within a half-mile radius of the actual TIF boundary. One of the areas that we've looked at is at the actual Drum Corps Drive area. There's been a lot of residential development there. There's also a large vacant site where there is interest to do more residential. Being so close to the street, to the university, part of this development agreement is actually, TIF creation. Following the pay-go, the additional increment would go to put pedestrian infrastructure along Drum Corps to allow that connectivity between both this center and the university and vice versa. How the TIF is actually laid out, as you can see on page 21, is that pedestrian curb and gutter stormwater would not be imposed until there was enough cash balance to actually do those projects. And again, that's estimated at this moment of 2035. So it is a long way out, but this TIF, as you can have a 27-year TIF, does pay itself back much sooner than that. So that I think is in year 16, 17, and 18, those funds could be pulled to do those projects.
You know, I could see us doing infrastructure in the red area and that, but I think some of that between the blue line between A and B, isn't some of that shaded property, Village of Fox Crossing?
Yes, so that is the Village of Fox Crossing. So that is actually TIF expenditures cannot be actually expended outside of the city's boundary. So again, before we would move forward with this project, one, hopefully that area is actually incorporated into the city of Menasha come that time. Otherwise, we would certainly want to work with the Village of Fox Crossing to make sure they're doing their part as well in bringing this connection together.
And why would it be, and over there it would be reconstruction of the of the streets, sidewalks, curb, gutter?
Currently, there is a ditch street, so again, putting stormwater in, curb and gutter, and the pedestrian facilities.
Okay. Why wouldn't that stand alone on a public works project rather than going across the highway and not staying within the boundaries of the red on the map here?
If it was a standalone public works project, we would typically look at either special assessing all those property owners or paying that out of our tax levy. So again, TIF creation allows us to, it is a tool for municipalities to get their best bang for their buck and to actually do projects that make a difference for connectivity, eliminating blight and things of that nature.
And why wouldn't we assess those property over there?
We actually do, it's really loud. We actually do assess for projects that are within TIF, so it's Province Terrace that we just approved, Ponds of Menasha that's going to Board of Public Works for the preliminary resolution later tonight, are TIF projects, but they are specially assessed, so Drum Core Drive would be treated no differently, where it would be specially assessed to those properties.
So why put that in the TIF?
The TIF fund, Sam's correcting me.
So, excuse me,
So why put that public works project in the TIF if we can assess these properties and everything for the stormwater and?
Because, again, as I stated, creating this TIF district not only gives potential developer incentive, but it gives Menasha and municipalities a tool to make a difference beyond where we're currently at. I mean, how long has that been a curb and gutted street that hasn't had those pedestrian amenities because we haven't wanted to specially assess that. And so this gives us that tool to do that.
And where do you see the blight on that site? On the town's property?
Again, this is the infrastructure to assist in the overall blight image of the entire neighborhood where we're adding that connectivity. We're making sure that that Peter's development has those amenities with people, the connectivity and how that fits with the overall
And
neighborhood.
I do understand that, but on the other side of the street here, the gray shaded property, if you want to see there's some blight there, that would be the Town of Menasha's project or Fox Crossing. And we have all the nice duplexes or homes along Drum Court Drive from that project, and I don't see any blight. Those are rather-
I'm sorry, do you mind if I try to address this a little bit? So just, I wanted to just clarify that the level of detail in this project plan is what is required by DOR, and that everything in here is just a plan. It's not set in stone. This is really, putting these types of projects in there is giving you the flexibility in the out years, in the future, to conduct projects like this. And as to the blight, this is not a blight district, so there's no real, need to distinguish blight in this sense. You can conduct projects within a half mile of the TID boundary that are infrastructure projects without having to go through the whole blight finding.
And that's what
process.
I kept hearing this blight, and I just don't see.
And because this is being created as a rehabilitation district, it's not under the same scrutiny as creating a blight district formally.
And you said the DOR?
DOR requires a certain amount of detail for all these project plans that we're submitting. So just putting these in there is really about creating flexibility for the future. And again, it's the same idea as the PAYGO, right? You don't know exactly what's going to happen, but you want to make sure that you have a plan or some ideas for what you can expend.
DOR, Department of?
Revenue, Wisconsin Department of Revenue.
Thank you. And then we could come back and tax these people if we put in all these projects, the street, the water, the infrastructure.
He means assess.
If you so choose to do that at the time we do that project, the city council has the ability to specially assess that and send out notices and do it that way versus paying for this out of the TIF district. Again, this gives us the ability to do that, but if we don't have that in the project plan, we cannot go and pay for those projects without that.
Okay. And if we took this side of, the east side of Highway 47, Appleton Road, out of the TIF, could we still accomplish the TIF with just what's in the red here?
Yes.
Yes.
That area is not in the TIF.
It's not in the TIF.
it's an expenditure outside of the TIF.
Okay. And we're looking to annex that Area A with the town or with the village?
Area A is describing the pedestrian facility there.
So this is
The gray area is outside of
This is a
the
trail?
current municipal
This is a
boundaries.
trail,
Sidewalk.
sidewalk. Okay. 4 foot, 5 foot sidewalk?
We have not done any design work on this yet.
Attorney Captain, did you want to comment as well?
We can't annex, by the way, because it's no longer a town. It's a village. So one would have to detach, and then we'd have to attach.
Then I would like the director to clarify, you had talked about taking this property in, or what was your statement on that?
We wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't consistently look at closing our gaps. We've had a previous municipal boundary here. I'm not saying that, again, that's not part of this TIF, but again,
Okay, so it
we're
sounds like
looking at,
we're wordsmithing here, and what is the word you would use for that village property?
attach.
Attached that, okay, to the city?
Yes.
Okay. And, I don't know who wants to, page 12, start at the top there, the street and landscaping. And we have clocks and benches and planters, and where are those items proposed for?
So as John stated earlier, we, unless it's called out in the project plan, we cannot come back and try to do that later. So again, what this does is add flexibility to potentially use TIF dollars where we would otherwise have to use levy dollars to pay for certain amenities such as streetscape, landscape along that 47 corridor. Additional increment can be used within a half mile of the boundary. And this is again to improve the overall corridor as you're coming in and out of that area.
So what is your thinking on clocks, tree rings, trash receptacles? I know we eliminated as many trash receptacles as we could in the city in our parks for cost-saving measures. So,
Sorry, I'm gonna jump in again. Again, this is just, we encourage people to put in as placeholders, this type of expenditure, because if you don't, and something comes up, who knows what, it's very difficult to go
well,
back.
I understand that, and I was asking the director here, where would you plan on putting trash receptacles, clocks, and where would the clock?
As stated, this gives us the flexibility to come back and potentially use increment dollars at a later date. If we don't have items like this summarizing just general streetscape and landscaping potentials, we can't use those funds at a later date to do that. So again, we are not saying we're going to put 10 new clocks on Highway 47 or 7 new trash receptacles, but this gives us the potential flexibility to come back at a later date and do that.
Because we don't use them in our parks, why would you use them out there? Okay. And if you could explain the next two paragraphs, the miscellaneous, the cash grants, and
So the miscellaneous cash grants, again, this is basic placeholders to potentially come back at a later date because a PAYGO TIF does not use 100% of the taxing increment. So the additional increment, let's say it's 300,000, is not 100%. There are funds that are left over for potential project, such as TIF 9 with Province Terrace. We have come back later and we've done a trail, we've done a boardwalk. Those amenities are things that come at a later date. This allows us to have flexibility to come back to you at a later date, but not have to amend the actual project plan to do so. So again, it gives the city and the common council greater flexibility for how it is written today versus not having that.
And the pedestrian improvements, curb gutter, and related stormwater improvements are totaling $449,000. Is what you're saying here?
That is what we had just discussed regarding drum court, yes.
Okay. And are we gonna be widening Drum Court Drive, Josh?
No engineering has been done because that is a future, again, giving us flexibility to come back and potentially do that at a later date.
Okay. Is there any property acquisition we would have to do with that?
We would have to take that upon at that time.
Because I know it's a very narrow street, and I'm sorry that I bore you with this, Josh, you know. I'm sorry that you drop your head and make monkey shines, you know, I'm sorry.
Point
that
of
I
order,
really,
Mr. Taylor.
Bore you with this project.
Mr. Taylor,
Yes.
you should not be heckling staff and treating
Right,
them without respect.
and he shouldn't be doing his actions
And
here
he
in front
should
of us
not be
like that,
either, as
Mayor,
far as
okay?
that's concerned,
He should act
but-
like a professional up here.
And so should
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. I'm sorry I had questions. Okay. Mayor, maybe you should direct your staff a little bit better. Thank you.
Alderman Sevenick,
If there's no further questions, I'd like to make a motion if that's possible.
that would be good.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Then, at this time, I'll move for R819, the resolution approving the project plan and establishing the boundaries for the creation of TIF increment district number 14 for the city of Menasha, which was introduced by the mayor.
There's a motion and a second by Alderman Ted Crotty. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, I don't think it works. You're gonna try it?
Well, we'd have to get the
Oh,
other screen up.
we're gonna flip the screen and we're gonna see if it works. If it doesn't, we'll do a roll call vote.
Okay, so let's try and keep our fingers crossed. No.
Okay.
Okay. So, same thing.
I've never seen that quorum not okay motion fail thing.
Yeah.
What that means is there's not enough people that voted to have a quorum of the people to vote, because none of us were allowed to vote,
None of you were allowed to vote.
because
so-
none of us voted. Okay, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
So we'll start Alderman Taylor. Because I started with Alderman Nichols last time. I've been going around. Yes, I am. I have been alternating throughout the whole evening.
Say pass. Go with me.
Alderman Sevenick.
Aye.
Alderman Langdon. Alderman Kruger. Alderman Tom Grady. Alderman Ted Grady. Alderman Rapella. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Taylor. Motion carries on roll call 5-3.
Thank you for being so patient, Peter.
Good presentation, Peter.
I do have one more bucket of ginger snaps that I plan on bringing tomorrow, if you'd like some.
Thank you. We going back on here?
So we'll go backwards again, back to where we were. We'll go back to action items. And the first item is the accounts payable and payroll for March 4th through 14th. Alderman Nichols?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move for the approval of the accounts payable and payroll for the term of March 4th through March 14th, 2019, in the amount of $692,820.
There's a motion and a second by Alderman Ted Grady. Is there any discussion? Did you have discussion, Becky?
I do.
Go ahead.
Just one item. Director Jacobs, combined page 8. The third from the bottom, check number 64154, is a check to the Village of Fox Crossing in the amount of $25,971.22, delinquent charges and a tax bill. Could you tell us more about that one, please?
I will quick pull out the voucher. Okay, these are delinquent charges that are for, that Fox Crossing has given us notice for collections for them. There are properties on London Street, Geneva Road, Deerfield Avenue, Harold Drive. Of what happens is that there are some instances where there are parcels that we are responsible for collecting the dollars, just like other taxing entities. They ask us to collect other delinquent other charges that their municipality must bill for, and if they cannot collect them themselves, then they have the right to place them on our property tax bills. So this must be for parcels. I'm not familiar enough with the boundaries of who services whom for different things. So there must be some parcels that Fox Crossing bills for some services. I don't know if it's for utility bills or something that they bill for, that people did not pay them. So then they have the right to put it on the property tax bill, which we control because the parcel lies within the city of Menasha. What happens is at the February 20th, there's a settlement done that we would end up paying for any amounts that we collected on those bills that we sent out, those delinquent charges, and then we have to pay the municipal entity for.
Okay, that makes sense to me if it's a charges for utility services that weren't collected.
Correct, that they would have billed out for, and then we're the only way that they can place a lien on the property by giving us the bill for us to collect it on the property tax bill and then go ahead and collect it for it and then pay it to them.
Thank you. It was the tax bill part of that description
Yes.
that confused me. Thank you.
Alderman Grady?
Yeah, I just had, thank you, Mayor. I have a question as far as, it would be page 1 of the combined page 6, a payment to Ayers and Associates. It's check number 64140, Jefferson Park. Are those for revisions, or is that just a normal payment period, or what? Normal engineering. Okay, all right. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions, if we could have a roll call vote. We had a motion, right?
Yes, we did.
If we could have a roll call vote, please.
I will start with Alderman Langdon.
Aye.
Alderman Kruger. Alderman Tom Grady. Alderman Ted Grady. Alderman Rapella. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Taylor. Alderman Sevenick. Motion carried on roll call 8-0.
Item 2 is the beverage operators license applications. We have one. If we would have a motion for that, Alderman Nichols.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move for the approval of the beverage operators license applications for the 2017 through 2019 licensing period as listed under approved in the police department's memo. Actually, it's not from the police department anymore. From the deputy clerk's memo dated March 4th, 2019.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? The motion carries. From what I can see, Ms. Long, we did not get any more information. Is that correct, Chuck? You don't have your name forward.
No,
Or
Tim
does it
Timmons
say-
here,
Oh,
so there isn't
okay.
one with my name on it, so, Chuck Sarn, for those of you who don't know me. Tim briefed me on it before he left last week and said that the person as a condition of probation couldn't be in a place where alcohol was sold. So it wasn't prudent to approve it. If we did, and the person would be working there, we would potentially arrest them for violating their condition of probation or take them into custody. My understanding that was upon them to come and say that that condition was lifted. I have not received anything since I was told about it last week.
So we could take two actions. We could deny the license, or we could leave it on the agenda until we do get something, or postpone it. I guess there's three options. What's the pleasure of the council? Alderman Nichols?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move for the denial of the operator's license for Michelle Long.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? The motion carries. Item K1 is Resolution 7. Do we have a motion? Alderman Nichols?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move for the approval of R719, a resolution to approve the cancellation of outstanding checks and the write-off of general uncollectible accounts receivables and delinquent personal property tax receivables as introduced by Mayor Merkes.
There's a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Seeing none, we probably should have a roll call vote on this one.